What's up, guys? So I wanted to take a quick second to show you my permanent Immortal Call Righteous Fire character in the 3.6 Betrayal League. Um, this character is, as far as Righteous Fire characters go, it's pretty normal. I'm not really innovating on Righteous Fire, but the cool part is that it has Immortal Call all the time. So if I start cycloning, you'll see in the top left that I've already generated 8 endurance charges. And as I cyclone, I'm automatically proccing Immortal Call. It never falls off, even against bosses. So that's nice because 100% physical immunity is clearly pretty desirable for a lot of the content, especially like deeper delves, Uber Izaro. There's just an endless amount of content these days that physical immunity is going to enable you to take care of. So the way I'm doing this is obviously I'm a Juggernaut. And having semi-permanent Immortal Call for Juggernauts is not new, but usually it was because of unflinching. When they were clearing packs, they would just get hit often enough to generate endurance charges, and then cast some damage, take an Immortal Call would take over. But the problem was on bosses, that's not reliable, right? You don't want to have to take a giant hit from Izaro in order to start generating endurance charges to get your Immortal Call going. So what I'm doing is I rely on this unflinching node that says that there's a 30% chance to gain an endurance charge when you're hit, and you also gain an endurance charge every second if you've been hit recently. And then I use the Gluttony belt. This is a belt that I used in my last build, my Gladiator Herald of Agony build, and I realized that 155 physical damage taken when you use a movement skill counts as hitting yourself. So you can proc all of the if you've been hit recently effects in the game, one of which is that Juggernaut passive. So that means that when I'm cycling, I'm constantly hitting myself. And then with the new crafting system, you can trigger a socketed spell when you use any skill, so that counts for Cyclone. In this scepter, I just socket my Immortal Call with increased duration. And I also put my Stone Golem in there because it's just convenient. But the key is that there's a 5-second cooldown on the skills that you cast with this trigger socketed spell craft. And so you just have to make sure that you have enough endurance charges to exceed that 5-second cooldown. So you can see my Immortal Call with 8 endurance charges lasts just about 6 seconds, which means that it's up 100%. So that's pretty much the key thing in the character, and you could actually use this mechanic combining these two things with Juggernaut on a lot of different builds. I ultimately went with Righteous Fire because the Combs Waverings have a lot of synergy with Righteous Fire, and I just hadn't made a Righteous Fire character in a long time, so I thought it would be fun. But other than that, my actual character here, you can look them up and you can mimic my build, but I would say that I'm really only about a mid-game Righteous Fire character. You can see my Atlas is like not that filled out. I'm only level 87. I've only spent maybe like 4 exalts, maybe 5 exalts on gear on this character. And these days with Righteous Fire, the sky's the limit. You can, with all the crafting options available, you can dump like 20 to 30 exalts into an RF character and really min-max them. So what I wanted to show off was this mechanic, but now I will go over the actual decisions if you want to have like a basic RF guide or if you want to try and mimic this character. So let's start with the passive tree. So if you're new to RF, the way that it works is that you ignite yourself. So I'm actually burning right now, and everything in this radius is burning for a portion of my health. So what you want to do on the passive tree is get as much health and life regen as you possibly can, just as much as you can fit. I come through all this health here. I don't go up to the armor for this life regen, and instead I go through the resistance. The reason being is the Gluttony belt I use to damage myself. The last mod, no armor or energy shield. I can't have any armor or energy shield, so scaling percent armor is kind of irrelevant for me. It felt like a long way to go for just 0.5% regen. But come through the all res, more life, jewel sockets. For your jewels, you just want life, burning damage, I guess some attack speed for my movement skills. Life, this is an important node for 1% max fire res. Fire damage and life regen is pretty obvious. I'm currently working my way into this life cluster, a lot of life regen here. I get an Abyssal Jewel with cold damage to attacks so that I can proc Elemental Equilibrium, which which reduces the resistances to fire for enemies that I hit, and because Righteous Fire doesn't hit, it doesn't undo the elemental equilibrium. Scion Life Wheel is obvious. Templar area is obvious. You want as much area as you can get. There's some generic damage here, some elemental damage and resistances, more life, and endurance charges. You'll see I only pick up the endurance charges in front of the Marauder and the Templar. I do not go all the way down to the Duelist. Many RF builds do this, but I didn't think it was worth it. Instead, I went up into the Witch so that I could get this entire Heart of Flame and Breath of Flames cluster, because there's just quite a lot of damage. And then obviously you're going to want Elemental Overload. You're not going to proc it reliably with your Cyclone, so like many RF builds, I use increased critical strikes, faster casting, and storms. So this will eventually crit, and when it does, it will proc my Elemental Overload and give you 40% more damage for my RF. And you also have the option of speccing into more area if you feel like you want it, but for the Ascendancy, so for one you get the Templar, and then for the Ascendancy, I pick up Unflinching and I go up to Unyielding, which gives you 5% area of effect per endurance charge. So I'm getting, with 8 endurance charges, I'm getting 40% area, so I didn't feel like I needed the area of effect in the Witch. In fact, it feels like overkill right now to have increased area for clearing, the Templar AoE, and then 40% for my endurance charges. Other than that, I go for Unbreakable. For the more life regen, 5% reduced damage taken does actually reduce the RF degen, which is nice. And then 1.5% of total physical damage prevented from hits is sometimes an insane amount of regen because you have permanent Immortal Call. So every physical damage hit that you take becomes physical damage prevented. So if you get slammed for like 3,000 physical damage, then you're going to be regenerating like 45 flat HP, which is going to be scaled by increased life recovery rate. And so if you're just getting hit by a ton of trash mobs, like Abyss mobs or something, your life regen is going to go through the roof. So that is actually kind of an interesting note for the permanent Immortal Call. And then Unstoppable is just really awesome quality of life. I couldn't recommend more. Other than that, I do not go for Unrelenting. And this is a choice I would say between Unrelenting and probably Unyielding. The main reason I didn't go for it is because the additional physical damage reduction per endurance charge is irrelevant when we have permanent Immortal Call. Because we're already immune, there's no point to getting additional reduction per endurance charge. 8% reduced elemental damage taken while at maximum endurance charges is nice, and it would make you more tanky, along with the Chaos Res. It's like 32% Chaos Res, so it's nothing to sneeze at. But I'm using dual purities. I'm running Purity of Fire and Purity of Ice, and I'm also running a Saphel's Frame. And so that gets our resistances up. I need to get level 20 Purity of Ice, so it'll be 84, 83, and 79. Those are pretty good elemental resistances, and I don't think that 8% reduced elemental damage taken would really make or break a lot of survival situations, so I opted for the area and the damage just to have a better experience clearing, because we're not like many RF builds that use Scorching Ray. Scorching Ray isn't a movement skill, so it won't proc our Immortal Call, and instead I rely solely on my RF for clearing, and as a result, clear speed's going to go down unless you have a really big AoE and a lot of movement speed. So I really recommend going up for Unyielding or your Ascendancy choice. And then for the gearing, it's going to be pretty normal for our character, just looking for as much life and resistances as you can fit on every single gear slot. I got a Marble Amulet here that's pretty good. I would recommend working your way towards that. If you get an Elder one, I believe you can also get Life Regen as one of the prefixes or suffixes. So in addition to the implicit, you'll have a prefix or suffix with Life Regen. My helmet I have is very basic. It's just the socketed gems deal 30% more elemental damage. Your helmet with RF can go a lot more advanced than this and become quickly a lot more expensive. But this is kind of like a good starter. You put your RF in here, so I have RF, Elemental Focus, Burning Damage, Increased AoE. I swapped Conk Effect for single target. And then of course the 30% more elemental damage is another multiplier. Comb's Heart is another clear choice. They're surprisingly like 1 exalt right now. Can't believe how cheap they've become this league. I got actually lucky and dropped this one, but buying one should be not an issue. For the scepter, I found this one on the trade site, but the way you search, you want to make sure that it has an open crafting slot and no other crafted mods, so you can craft, trigger a socketed spell when you use a skill. I think that this is, well, you can check if it's a prefix or a suffix. Let's see. Yeah, so it's a suffix. So you need to make sure when you're filtering your scepters that you're looking at, that it has at least one open suffix and no other craft mods. And so I got pretty lucky with this one because I think it has around 133% effective damage to my RF, which is more than a Doriani's Catalyst, and it had that open suffix. It was about 80 chaos, and I think that I might have overpaid a little bit, but hey, I really wanted it. Other than this gear, so these combs ways are going to be maybe 40 chaos a pop, but I think that they've been going down in price since I saw. I really would recommend them, not only for the insane amounts of life regen that you're going to get, but also the additional maximum endurance charges that's necessary to get your Immortal Call to last more than the cooldown of the craft. So I would definitely recommend these. They're pretty much best in slot. And then one other item that is really important that you should work towards is a Watcher's Eye. There it is. So the first mod is kind of irrelevant because I don't run Clarity, but 30% increased life recovery rate while affected by Vitality is a more multiplier for your life recovery rate. So for example, without this, with all my endurance charges and all my regen on the tree and gear, I think I have about 20-ish% life regen, but with this mod, I go up to like 27% life regen, because it multiplies all of my life regen, and that's really, really huge. This was about 2 exalts, and I would say that it's definitely something that you should work on getting quickly. And then you can squeeze in Vitality as your last aura, so 2 Purities and Vitality. You're going to have to run a level 3 Enlighten, but this was like 20 Chaos, because a lot of people level Enlighten to level 3, and then they corrupt it with the hopes of level 4. We don't need a level 4, so just buy a corrupted level 3, and you can run your 3 auras, and you'll be good to go. Another downside to this build is that the belt slot, you cannot use an Elder leather belt, and that's a bummer because Elder leather belts can craft 20% increased, or up to 20% increased life recovery rate, just like the Watcher's Eye, which is a more multiplier to our life recovery rate. It is a bummer to lose out. That is going to be like losing 4.5, maybe 5% life regen by not having that craft. But overall, I think it's worth it. You still get a lot of life on the Gluttony belt, and that permanent Immortal Call against bosses is, I think, pretty hard to give up. So that's pretty much the build, guys. I don't have any great content to show you because I'm so early on in this league. I wish I could show you something hard, but I just don't think it'd be worth it. I'll run a map if you want to hang around and watch it, but it clears like, clears like an RF character, just like you would expect. This is really the only innovation, but I thought it was a pretty cool innovation and a lot of people would be interested. Anyways, let's run, I guess we'll run a geode and put on some music. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed the build. 1, 2, 3,